Picture this scene. You are pushing 60 miles per hour on a stretch of tarmac that glistens under the streetlights. The rain has stopped, but the road remains treacherous, a mirror of dark water and asphalt. You commit to a sweeping curve, the tires humming a steady rhythm against the pavement. Suddenly, mid-corner, the feedback in your steering wheel vanishes. The sound of friction disappears. You have hit a patch of black ice. In one car, the reaction is visceral. You feel a distinct mechanical shudder run through the floorboards, a sensation of heavy drag, as if the car itself is biting into the earth. There is no hesitation, no waiting for a sensor to wake up. The gears bind, the torque shifts instantly, and the machine claws its way out of the slide with the brute force of pure physics. This is the sensation of permanent all-wheel drive. Now, imagine that same corner in a different machine. As you hit the ice, the rear of the car steps out, just for a fraction of a heartbeat. It feels playful, almost dangerous. But before your pulse can even spike, a digital brain intervenes. In milliseconds, a multi-plate clutch compresses, snapping the front wheels into action to pull you straight. The correction is surgical, precise, and entirely orchestrated by software. Welcome to the War of Philosophies. Today, we are not simply looking at specification sheets or 0 to 60 times. We are dissecting the very soul of German engineering. On one side, we have Audi's legendary Quattro with the Torsen differential, a system built on the cold, hard reliability of mechanical gears. On the other, we have BMW's xDrive, an intelligent system born from the lightning-fast logic of silicon and clutch packs. We are here to answer the ultimate question. Which system actually keeps you alive when physics turns against you, and which one is merely a marketing gimmick masked as safety? Let us begin. Before we can truly understand this rivalry, we must first look past the chrome badges on the trunk lid. To the average consumer, Quattro is simply a brand name, a marketing sticker applied to everything from a hatchback to a supercar. But today, we are stripping that away. We are focusing on the real deal, the mechanical heart that built the legend, the longitudinal Torsen system. The name Torsen is an elegant contraction of torque sensing. This system is a masterpiece of mechanical purity. It is entirely analog. It relies on the immutable laws of physics, not on silicon processors. It operates through the interplay of worm gears and worm wheels, a complex dance of metal where friction is not the enemy, but the ally. When the system detects a difference in rotational speed between the axles, the gears bind instantaneously. There is no waiting for a computer to wake up. There is no latency. It is the raw, immediate reaction of torque finding the path of greatest resistance. On the other side of the ring, standing in stark contrast to this mechanical durability, we have BMW xDrive. This is what engineers define as an actively controlled multi-plate clutch system. Where the Audi relies on the cold, hard grind of metal against metal to physically force traction, BMW places its faith in the ethereal realm of data. The xDrive system is built upon sensors, complex algorithms, and a digital brain capable of making thousands of calculations every single second. It does not just react to a loss of grip, it actively looks for it. By monitoring steering angle, throttle position, and wheel speed, the system creates a digital model of the road, constantly modulating the pressure on a wet clutch pack to send power exactly where the software dictates it must go. The philosophical divide here is profound. The Audi Torsen system is a heavy, reliable hammer, striking with the blunt force of mechanical certainty. The BMW xDrive is a scalpel, precise, calculated, and guided by a digital surgeon. Two German titans, two radically different ways to answer the same question. To truly understand the philosophical divide between Ingolstadt and Munich, one must leave the glossy sheet metal of the exterior, lift these machines into the air, and gaze at the raw architecture beneath. Let us begin with the Audi, particularly on their traditional longitudinal platforms, ranging from the A4 to the flagship A8. Direct your eyes to the rear of the transmission tunnel. What you see here is a lesson in seamless integration. The Torsen differential is not bolted on as an afterthought, but rather, it is sculpted directly into the gearbox tail housing. It appears perfectly inline, streamlined, and deceptively simple from the outside. Yet, encased within that aluminum shell is a complex, heavy-duty arrangement of worm gears, interlocking to create a purely mechanical bond between the front and rear axles. Take special note of what is missing. There are no electrical harnesses or control wires entering this specific mechanical unit. It requires no sensors, no computing power, and no permission to act. It relies solely on physics. Now, shift your gaze to the BMW. The approach here represents a radically different school of thought. Bolted clearly to the output of the transmission is a separate, distinct component known as the transfer case. If you were to peer inside this box, you would not find the permanent engagement of worm gears. Instead, you would find a chain drive, tasked with sending power to a propeller shaft that runs forward alongside the engine block. The heart of this system is a wet clutch pack, waiting to be compressed. And here lies the critical difference. Look for the electric servo motor attached to the side of the case. This is a system that thinks before it acts. The servo must physically squeeze the clutch plates to send power forward, relying on data from the car's brain. The visual contrast is absolute. Where the Audi looks like a piece of heavy, timeless industrial machinery, the BMW resembles a complex robotic actuator, a blend of steel and silicon waiting for a command. Forget the dry text of a classroom. This is physics in motion. Deep inside the housing of the Audi Torsen differential, a mechanical ballet is taking place. When one axle begins to rotate faster than the other, the internal worm gears essentially refuse to cooperate. They bind up against each other. Engineers call this the locking factor. It relies purely on the inherent dynamics of friction. There are no sensors, no computations, and no decisions to be made. It happens instantly. Because it is purely mechanical, there is zero latency. The engine torque is physically diverted to the axle that still possesses grip. It does not need a computer to tell it what to do. It simply acts. Conversely, the philosophy changes completely when we look at BMW's xDrive. This system prefers to push you from behind, normally maintaining a 40-60 split for that classic rear-wheel drive feeling. But it is always watching. Wheel speed sensors monitor for the slightest slip, and steering angle sensors predict a turn before the car even rotates. When the electronic brain decides traction is needed, it commands a high-speed servo motor to compress a stack of wet clutch plates inside the transfer case. This is not about gear binding, but rather hydraulic pressure. The harder the system squeezes these plates, the more power flows to the front wheels. It is a digital intervention that can shift torque from 0% at the front to a full 50-50 lock in just 100 milliseconds. It is the raw immediacy of friction against the calculated precision of pressure. Ultimately, engineering is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It is about the sensation delivered to the driver's fingertips. When we step away from the diagrams and onto the tarmac, the difference between these two German philosophies becomes immediately apparent. Consider the Audi first. With the Torsen system, you are engaging with permanent all-wheel drive. It is a system of gears, constantly meshed, constantly working. Behind the wheel, it feels planted. It feels heavy in the most reassuring way possible. It drives with the solidity of a granite block, offering a predictable, unwavering trajectory through a corner. However, even mechanical purity has a specific weakness within the laws of physics. The Torsen design functions by multiplying torque resistance. Therefore, if one axle finds itself completely airborne or on a surface with absolutely zero grip, the mechanical physics fail. Without resistance, Torque cannot be biased, and the power flows to the spinning wheel. To solve this, Audi must rely on the brakes to clamp down on the spinning wheel, an electronic trick to fool the mechanical system into working again. Cross the border to Munich, and the philosophy shifts entirely with BMW xDrive. This is an on-demand system. Under normal cruising conditions, the clutch pack remains largely open, sending the vast majority of power to the rear wheels. Consequently, it does not feel like a heavy all-weather machine. It feels like a rear-wheel drive sports car. It is agile, eager to rotate, and efficient, only calling upon the front axle when the rear tires begin to lose their fight for traction. Its greatest technical advantage lies in the clutch pack itself. Unlike the gears of the Audi, the BMW can fully compress its clutches to physically lock the front and rear drive shafts together. This allows it to force a perfect 50-50 torque split, regardless of whether a wheel is hanging in the air. It does not need to trick the physics. It simply overrides them with friction. Yet, this electronic agility comes at a cost. Clutches rely on friction, and friction creates heat. While the Audi gear set might theoretically outlast the chassis itself, the BMW system involves moving parts that wear down. Over time, or under the extreme abuse of a track day, the clutches can overheat and the system may degrade. So, the conclusion is a matter of character. The Audi Quattro is for the durability purist, a system built for longevity and unshakable stability in the foulest weather. The BMW xDrive is for the driver, offering the sharp dynamics of a sports car with a sophisticated electronic safety net waiting in the wings. Two engineering giants, two very different ways to conquer the road. For decades, we have obsessed over the friction of gears and the precise locking percentage of differentials. We have romanticized the mechanical connection between the engine and the road. But as we stand on the precipice of a new era, we must acknowledge a hard truth. This mechanical war, fought with cold steel and hot oil, is effectively ending. With the rise of the electric titans, machines like the Audi e-tron GT and the BMW iX, the physical center differential has gone extinct. Look underneath these cars, and you will find a void. There is no long, heavy steel driveshaft tunneling through the floor to connect the front axle to the rear. The physical link that defined the character of these German giants has been severed. Instead, we now have isolation. We have a motor at the front and a motor at the back, separated by a battery pack and united only by copper wire. The legendary Quattro badge, once the symbol of a Torsen gear set physically sensing torque loss, is now simply code. It is software that whispers to the front motor to spin a fraction of a second faster than the rear, simulating a connection that no longer exists. And here lies the great irony of this historic rivalry. BMW's approach with xDrive, which purists often criticized for being heavy on clutch packs and electronic intervention, actually gave them a massive head start in this new world. Because xDrive was already reliant on sensors and computing power to distribute torque, BMW's engineers were speaking the language of the future long before the batteries arrived. Audi, who relied on the pure analog brilliance of mechanical gears, had to reinvent their entire philosophy from scratch. The future of German engineering is no longer about gears, shafts, or clutches. It is about latency in lines of code. The mechanical soul, that tactile vibration of gears meshing together to find grip, is gone. It has been replaced by digital torque vectoring that can react infinitely faster than physics ever could, creating a driving experience where the road is conquered not by leverage, but by logic. So where does this leave us in the grand pantheon of automotive engineering? We have dissected the worm gears of Ingolstadt and the clutch packs of Munich, and we realize that we are not simply choosing a drivetrain. We are choosing a philosophy. The Audi Torsen Quattro is a testament to the unbreaking laws of physics. It is a system built on the belief that mechanical connection is superior to digital intervention. It requires no sensors, no hydraulic pumps, and no lines of code to function. It simply exists, instantaneous and unbreakable. If you desire a machine that will endure the harshest winters and survive the apocalypse through sheer mechanical resilience, the Torsen Quattro is your king. It offers a sense of permanence, a feeling that the car is clawing into the tarmac with steel rather than silicon. It is always there, always working, completely indifferent to electronic failure. However, the world has evolved, and with it, the definition of performance. BMW xDrive acknowledges that while physics is absolute, it can be manipulated. By introducing the electronic brain, BMW created a system that prioritizes the driver's emotion. It is not just about grip, it is about the transition of weight and the sensation of rotation. Because it can decouple the front axle entirely, it preserves the purity of rear-wheel drive steering until the very moment you need salvation. It thinks faster than human reflexes allow, processing data from wheel speeds, steering angle, and yaw rate to adapt to the road proactively. Ultimately, the verdict relies on what you value most in the silence of the cockpit. Do you want the unwavering, heavy reliability of gears grinding against gears? Or do you want the sharp, adaptive brilliance of a computer that anticipates your every move? The question is no longer about which system provides more grip. The question is simply this: do you trust gears or do you trust code?